World War II goes as it did historically until a point of divergence arises during the Battle of Britain. Germany gains air superiority and defeats the British Air Force, and then strategically bombs England throughout the war. England is never able to regain air superiority, but Germany is never able to conduct Operation Sea Lion because England's navy is just far too strong for that to happen. Now, the war in the Balkans and the war in Greece goes as normal, and the war in Africa goes sour for Italy because Italy's army sucks. And Germany invades the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union is fighting Germany, and they're doing just as they did in World War II. And Japan bombs Pearl Harbor just as they did at the same date. But another point of divergence arises here. The Japanese forces defeat the United States in both the battles of the Coral Sea and the Battle of Midway, and the United States is left defenseless following these. And the Atlantic Fleet is shipped over to defend the mainland of the United States and the Hawaiian Islands against Japanese aggression. Now, Japan does not have the power to attack Hawaii or even the mainland. God. And they go for New Guinea, and they go for the Solomon Islands. And in a battle of attrition, they eventually defeat the United States in Australia and New Zealand. But they never invade Australia or New Zealand because they don't have that kind of power projection that far. Instead, they focus their might on India. Now, Great Britain loses the Battle of lost the Battle of Britain, but they also lose the Battle of the Atlantic without American help. And, Operation Torch never happens, so momentum is never really lost for the Africa Corps. After the Battle of Elohim, I don't know. Elomain, I don't know how to say it. After the Second Battle of Elomain, they retreat and regroup, unlike retreating and getting defeated eventually in Tunis, just like in real life. Another point of divergence arises during the Battle of Stalingrad, and Germany wins and cuts off the Soviet Union from its oil supply in Baku, thereby limiting the Soviet forces from oil and making them far less mobile, and they're unable to carry a direct attack, but they resist with huge amounts of infantry and their artillery, and they're still able to make guns, and they're still able to make rifles and all that shit. But they don't get tanks and stuff from the United States because the United States doesn't have the navy to do land lease anymore. So the Soviet Union is pinned down from offensive attacks afterwards. Germany invades through the Caucasus, takes the oil fields into Iran and the Middle East. There's uprisings against colonial rule, just as in real life, against the British and French. And they're defeated, and the Africa Corps, rejuvenated, defeats the British army in Africa. There's a rebellion in India far stronger than in real life, and Japan and Germany mutually sweep through India and defeat the forces there. Now, following this, English and American forces agree on a white peace. England completely gives up its imperial empire, as well as the United States, but the United States gives Japan, Hawaii, and the Philippines. The Dutch and Belgian forces, just completely throw in the towel, and Japan inherits all that land. It inherits all these co-prosperity Pacific spheres, and it becomes the dominant power in the Pacific, and Germany becomes the dominant power there. But the Soviet Union and the Free French in Central Africa and the Chinese are still fighting. Following the surrender, the White Peace, Japan invades the eastern Siberia region and defeats Russian forces there. And over time, the Germans and the Japanese gradually overwhelm the Soviet Union. Over time as well, through German air intervention, the Japanese gradually overwhelm the Chinese. And through the moving of their forces throughout Africa, the Vichy French, Germans, and the Italians gradually defeat the Free French, and peace is found by about 1948, and the Axis forces declare victory. From this point on, Japan and the European Axis powers go their separate ways. Now, Germany is given vast swaths of land throughout Africa, and they form Middle Africa as a colonial holding. They gain all the British territories south of Sudan, and all the Free French holdings, and Madagascar, and all the Belgian holdings in Africa, and their former colonial holdings in Africa as well. Now, Italy gains the Sudan, and it gains parts of the Somalia that it didn't have before, and it keeps Ethiopia, and it gains Egypt. Germany actually puts down the rebellions in the Middle East and takes over the Middle East as the colonial holdings, but leaves Persia as a puppet, declaring them Aryan enough to be sovereign. Following this, Germany as well makes a colonial holding of all the former Soviet Union, with the exception of the eastern parts of Siberia, which Japan takes and annexes for its own uses. In there, Germany develops an apartheid system with Aryans, in quotes, on one side, and the Slavs, native of Poland and Russia and all the Soviet Union, are made, at the bottom of the apartheid system. Now, Great Britain had to give up all its colonial holdings, and Great Britain suffers a nationalistic backslash. While it never becomes part of the Axis powers, does become a fascist power and a royal power after a civil war between the military and the government, and becomes a fascist power, and actually intervenes in the Troubles and invades the rest of Ireland and annexes it to the United Kingdom. The United States maintains its democracy. All the Canadian state, the Australian state, and the New Zealand states also retain their democracy and are allies with the United States in a mutual defense, because neither Axis power has the naval power to defeat the United States. But Germany and the United States mutually develop nuclear weapons, and Japan develops them as a third. Now, Japan and the European Axis powers split, and there's a three-way Cold War between each state. Eventually, Japan has a revolution and becomes a democratic state and allies itself with the United States. The United States has more technologically advanced powers from all the Europeans that went over to the United States, and is more technologically advanced, and shares this with Japan. And all the Japanese puppets become democracies as well, and they're allied against the European Axis in a Cold War. Now, Germany is actually far superior technologically, and they get the start on them, because the United States never won the battle and never took, rockets and all the jets and stuff. So Germany actually has a huge historical, because their developments never discontinued, they have a historical leap and develops all the things that in modern warfare in isolation away from the United States and Japan. And Germany actually lands on the moon in the early 60s, and in fact by now would have landed on Mars. They weaponize space and have more powerful and lethal nuclear weapons than the Japanese and the United States. But Germany continues on this day as a fascist state due to massive support to Hitler, who died in the early 50s due to, his sickness. And the fascism just works in Europe, basically. It doesn't work as well in Japan. Japan eventually becomes democratic, and the world is split between the two sides, and there is no talks between each other until what would be now the present day. Now, the weaponization of space by Germany exists, and the somewhat weaponization of space by Japan and the United States also coexist with that. And, Germany's more technologically advanced, but it sucks ass to be there. All the Jews got wiped out. There's apartheid with the Slavs and the Aryans, and it just sucks dick. So that's pretty much it. They never nuke each other because MAD kind of works there, just as it worked between the United States and Soviet Union. So that's it. I hope you enjoy my presentation of alternate history. Thank you.